The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm with David Allara. David, welcome.
Hey Michael, great to be here. How are you?
Doing very well. I know it's early over there in Sydney, but glad that you are able to join us. So David, for those who aren't yet familiar with you, they're going to learn a lot more about you and your company here today, but you're the managing director of Connectus, audiovisual technology firm, and you lead a team of technology consultants, engineers, designers, project managers, and trainers. And you guys have worked in over 1,000 spaces throughout Australia, really to put in different audiovisual systems for the government of Australia, companies like Ernst & Young, ING, and many others. So I want to start off back a little bit in time. How did you get into kind of the audiovisual and tech space? Take us prior to starting Connectus. What was David doing?
Well, I guess it depends how far you want to go back there, Michael. I was originally in a very different industry. I was in the refrigeration industry. So we probably don't want to go that far back, but I did learn a lot of lessons in that experience of about 10 years working in Italy and the US, which I think I've transferred some of that knowledge and experience into then creating a consulting business. But how I got into, I guess, the audiovisual industry itself is I came back to Australia after being abroad for 10 or so years, and I was just looking for a job really and kind of just fell into the industry. There was a sales position going. I needed a job and I just took it, kind of liked it straight away. Moved straight away after about 6 months into another larger company, doing sales and marketing in their firm. Got more and more of a taste for it. And I could see that consulting was kind of like the place to be, for me at least, in the industry. So I then just looked for an opportunity consulting, which I eventually found towards the end of 2007 and started there.
So what was the calling for you? I mean, you've at that point had experiences in multiple different organizations working as an employee. What was the calling? What was going on in your mind, in your heart that was telling you, yeah, it's time for me to kind of go out on my own and build something?
Well, I've always been that way, to be honest with you. So even in the firms that I've worked for a longer period of time, I've had a lot of, or at least my managers or the owners of those companies have given me a lot of free rein, you might say, to sort of build something internally within that company. So, for example, in the refrigeration business there, I was very young, only in my early 20s when I started there, but the owner, he sent me to New York and said, okay, just go start up the North American branch by myself. And that was perfect for me because that's the kind of thing that I like. I like those challenges. I like to do it by myself and then sort of not be constrained by bureaucracy or red tape or layers of management. I've never been able to operate in those areas. And it was the same in audiovisual industry in my first company in the consulting world. The manager there, or the owner actually, I should say, he said, look, we've got a small AV team here, I'd like to grow it. So I was just given the opportunity to grow it. And yeah, there wasn't really a lot of checking in. It was more like just go do your thing. So it's almost like being an entrepreneur inside a company, if that makes sense, in two occasions there. And so then it was just a very easy way to move into doing it.
For yourself?
For ourselves, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the owner of that refrigeration company saw in you, in really taking like a leap of faith, sending you across the world to New York to open up kind of the business over there? Like, what were the characteristics or criteria, or just what did he see in you? What did you demonstrate to him that gave him so much faith to make that investment into you?
I've always been quite good at sales. And prior to doing that, I was working for him for about 3-4 years doing international sales. So he was sending me around the world anyway by myself. And I was meeting with senior executives and closing large deals in selling lots of fridges, you might say, to put it simply. So I was getting those numbers, getting some success there without too much guidance. So I think he must have felt like, okay, I gave him an opportunity. I asked for it. I kept asking for it, and he said, all right, fine. I guess persistence and maybe showing ability to sell, because I guess if you can't sell, you can't really start a business in the first place.
That's a really important point. So let's kind of go back in time a little bit, or kind of stay where we are right now, because I think you are right. There are probably a lot of lessons from that time in the refrigeration business. I mean, you're talking about sales and that you have experience and a track record of being successful selling. But you, in coming to know you, David, and the work that we've done together over the last little while, you're not the typical hard charging, try and twist your arm, knock you over salesperson. Like, that's just not your style, right? By any stretch of the imagination. So when you look at and kind of boil down what you think has actually made you an effective salesperson, what is that? Like, what's the secret sauce that if you had to teach somebody to just become really good at sales and you took the best practices that you've accumulated over the years, what are some of those key principles that have served you very well in the past, but also have served you well now over the last several years of building Connectus as your own business?
Look, I think there's probably just an innate skill, I guess, that I've had, which I didn't even realize was the reason I was being successful, and that is to actually listen to people. I've never been a big talker or overtaking conversations or talking over people or, trying to, as you say, twist people's arms. I am more interested in listening to what they actually want, what's important to them. I mean, it even goes back to when I was very young, sort of 15, 16, selling things in a sporting goods store. You just listen to people, what they want, why they want it, why they don't want something. You're trying to figure out what's important to them, and then you just help them achieve it. It's not very difficult when you sort of boil it down like that, but I think that's probably just the way I approach it.
I think I find that very interesting. A lot of people aren't comfortable with the idea of sales and selling, right? It just feels like it's a bad word, or just, they cause a lot of hesitation and kind of resistance on their part. But you said something that I think a lot of people will resonate with, which is the idea of listening. And you can be a great listener, but what you've kind of complemented that with or combined that with is once you've heard what people want, it sounds like you're also then very good at coming back to them and saying, well, based on what you've told me, based on what we've talked about, here's the recommended next steps, or here's some ideas, some options. Take me through, like, what would that look like for you, even in your business today or back in the day? What were you doing? Like, if you met somebody at a trade show, at a conference, at a meeting, you've asked them great questions, you've identified through the conversation what they want, what they don't want. What's your go-to next step? Like, how quickly do you go back to them? Do you make recommendations right then and there? What's the process that you found to work best?
Well, there's a lot of things which you and Sam teach which resonate with me, and it's kind of been my approach for a while. Definitely that concept of peeling back the layers of the onion. Maybe some listeners that have heard that before. I really believe that that's key. Okay, so I'm constantly asking why. I really want to get to the truth of the matter here. What's the core? There's usually some sort of an issue to solve or some sort of a goal to get to that a customer has. And customers or potential customers will come to me and say, I need this, I need that. I say, well, do you really? And I challenge it. So not being afraid to challenge, not being afraid to ask the why, and then another why, and then another why. Why is that important to you? What does that really mean to you? That's when you're going to have your most success, when you really get to the true crux of the matter, because then people will actually maybe uncover something they didn't realize was important, and then they'll hold it a lot more true or seriously and be wanting to do something about it. When it's more surface level discussions, or maybe there's a misconception on the part of the customer or potential customer, that's when things probably, I find, go off track, or there's not really a line up to do any business together, and it's usually a mistake to move forward.
And so once you then identified that, or you kind of got into the core of into the heart of the matter, again, what are you doing? Are you coming at them and saying, well, here's what we should do next in that same conversation, that same time? Are you following up the next day with an email? Are you following up with a proposal? What's kind of the best practices and approach that you've been using, or you've just found to work in the most effective way?
Well, we have a process, and it usually starts with doing a needs assessment, and that's more of what I was talking about earlier, peeling back the layers. And if they are serious and there is a problem or a goal which they're trying to achieve, then you might take it to another step. Definitely want to try and be speaking with a decision maker then. So I want to uncover who is a decision maker, Are you the decision maker? Great. If not, is there someone else? Okay, let's get that person or group involved in discussions, and we'll reaffirm what we've learned in the previous conversation with that person or group of people. And then, assuming there's still an interest to move forward and we've definitely uncovered a problem and there's definitely a fit for us to work with them, because that's also key. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for opportunities to disqualify potential opportunities to work with someone if there's red flags or just doesn't seem to be something that we can help them with. But assuming everything lines up, then it usually goes to some sort of a quote or a fee proposal. But by then you've generally understood, you're on the same page, you've understood the scope, you've understood how we could help them and what the outcome of that help might look like. And so really it starts to become more of a formality of, okay, well, this is the commercial agreement, so this is the scope, and then we sort of move forward from there.
You've shared with me, David, that you do have a very structured kind of sales process that you take clients through or prospective clients through. And you mentioned that at times when people on your team or just anytime you veer away from that process or don't really like stay true to it, the results, like you can see that something does break down. How have you developed that, or how do you kind of think about your sales process? Are you constantly updating it? Just wondering like what your mindset is around the sales process itself.
Well, I've learned over the years that selling really is about a process. And that's probably a misconception that, many listeners might have. It isn't about being liked or being the greatest conversationalist or going out to dinner with people every night. It is actually just about having a process and following the process, which sounds pretty boring, but it's when you have the right systems in place and you just follow those systems like the bouncing ball, you'll be amazed at the results you can get that way. But as soon as you don't follow the process, it's just like manufacturing something. You're not going to get that car at the end of the line if you miss some steps. If you haven't got the doors on it or the width, there's no tires. If you skip steps, unfortunately, in a process like that, it generally goes off track and not quite aligned, and you move forward with the wrong solution, and it's not quite where it could be for yourself and the customer.
The work that you do can feel, I would imagine, to buyers and prospective clients at times complex, right? I mean, you're helping them to set up audiovisual systems inside of offices these days, right? Hybrid types of offices, because people are working from home and around the world. There's a lot of different technology providers, a lot of different solutions. So I could imagine people kind of feeling a sense of complexity. What have you found kind of makes the biggest difference or is most important for you to actually be able to communicate the value that your firm provides? Because any company could just go, well, yeah, I think we just need to buy this television, get this speaker, get this technologies, but you're adding a whole other layer of value on top of that would be really challenging for them to do well themselves. How do you communicate that value? How do you communicate kind of the differentiation between what you're providing and maybe what others provide, or what a company might just try and figure out themselves in-house if they weren't to work with you?
That's a great question. And it probably comes down to the specific consulting piece, Michael. Okay, so if you don't do a consulting piece, it's likely going to be a poor result. But I'll explain that further. I think the business that we're in is not really so much the audiovisual business. We're really in the business of solving problems or helping people achieve goals. So it's more of a business type discussion that I think I'm having or my team are having when we're talking to customers. It's like, okay, like I said earlier, we peel back the layers. What's important to you? Like, none of those conversations are ever technical conversations. In fact, I encourage my team to never even talk technical. So the moment you start to talk about this widget and that one, you're already losing them. They don't understand that it's not their day-to-day. You need to focus on what's important to them. Can we get improved efficiency from our teams? Can our teams collaborate better? Can the learning in our schools be improved? These types of more sort of business-related tangible objectives that these organisations have, that's what they're focused on. So that's what we focus on. Now, the fact that we use AV technology as a medium to enable those outcomes and results to happen is really just a byproduct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fantastic point, because it's an area that I think many consultants struggle with, where they tend to focus or place too much focus on the inputs, the things that they're going to do and their methodology or the tools that they're using. But what the client really wants is a specific outcome. And so, as you said, the technology is really what enables the outcome, but the issues that get the ideal client excited are the things that they're dealing with. They go into a meeting, in your case, let's say, and all of a sudden, whatever they're using to bring people together into that meeting, the technology breaks down. Well, that's a big waste of productivity. That's a big loss of revenue and income and frustration. And so it's all these things. I think that's the lesson, or kind of the idea, that for all of our listeners right now and everyone joining us, to think about your specific business, right? And the focus should not be so much just on the things that you're doing, right? It's like, what is the outcome that is created, or the lack of outcome if those things aren't done? So that was a really great example of that. I want to talk also and just kind of explore, David, because a lot of your business has come through referrals, through kind of having a network, an ecosystem that you've set up, right? You have relationships with people in different government agencies. You have relationships with people in large professional services firms. How do you think about relationships? How do you think about, first of all, setting up those relationships? And then what do you do to maintain them, to kind of strengthen them over time? Like, are you using any specific approach? Are you using technology? What have you kind of found are some of the best ideas around there? What's been working best for you to cultivate and strengthen really meaningful relationships that you know will, or hope will, in the long term generate more business?
I wish I had more time to dedicate to relationships, is my quick answer to that question. But something must be working because we're having success. But we've gotten to the size that we are at the moment almost purely on repeat business, referrals, and doing good work is probably the summary. We haven't really had much of a marketing kind of system, or there hasn't been a lot of outbound going on. In the beginning, like, I started this company with Jonathan, my business partner, in 2013. I've always been responsible for the sales, and sure, in 2013, 14, 15, there was a lot of knocking on the doors and walking the pavement, trying to open opportunities, absolutely. But once those opportunities started to come in small projects, people give you small opportunities to show what you can do. In most cases, we seem to do a good job, make sure that we have understood the requirements and delivered on the requirements, and continue to follow up, and then just come back with giving us more opportunities. The trust is built. Again, they had a problem, they had a goal, we helped them achieve it. And so they sort of say, well, let's work again with Connectus. I mean, we're happy with it. It's basic business, right?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th, or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. What do you think, David, is maybe one thing that you do that your competitors or alternatives in the marketplace don't do? Like, what's a common mistake that you see people making in your industry that you are very intentional in doing your best to make sure that you don't make that same mistake?
In terms of maybe sales and marketing, I can't really speak for others, but we definitely have an intentional approach of long-term partnerships. Okay, so we don't really look at a project after project after project. I mean, that's exhausting, and it's no way to grow a business. We look at trying to build up long-term partnerships with customers, and always looking for ways that we can help them. Whether it's paid or not paid advice is not really the point. It's more about the longevity of the relationship. And we found that to be a pretty successful strategy.
Do you communicate that actively to clients and to prospects? Like, do you use that language in your conversations in terms of long-term partnerships? And I'd love to just kind of pull back the cover there a little bit more to try and understand, how are you taking that idea and actually implementing it to clients or to prospective clients?
Probably could communicate it a little bit better, but maybe it's more in our actions. It's just like internally, the team knows that that's what we're all about. It's about the long-term partnership. So I think innately in each of their minds, they understand that whatever it is they're doing, it's not about that one particular project. It's about the long-term relationship. And so they can make decisions based on that. It's not like, okay, well, this project has X amount of money, so I can't sort of go beyond that money on this project because it might affect profitability. That's not the mentality. We have the opposite. It's more like, okay, what is this customer saying they need? They need a little bit more assistance on this project, so we're going to give that to them no matter what. Or they might sort of call up. There's no engagement going on at that particular time, but they need some help. We absolutely help them out. So it's, as I say, maybe coming from within. So talking to the team, making sure the team understands what it is that we're all about and why we want to have longer term relationships. And then they just sort of, through their actions, demonstrate that.
That's incredibly powerful. Today, you have a good sized team. How do you do that? It sounds like almost your values, your belief system, your mindset around business, you're very much relational, right? Relationship based, not transactional. How do you make sure that everyone on your team understands those values? Are you doing a sit down meeting? Is it a retreat? Is it a handbook that you give to people when they first become part of the team? What does that look like at Connectus?
Yeah, it's probably just a bunch of things, really. Yeah, we get together and as a team, we work on the company vision, and it's not sort of someone at the top. It's not like me writing it or Jonathan and I, my business partner, writing it and saying, here you go, follow it. It's the opposite. It's like, well, we don't have all the answers, so let's just work together as a team and what should our vision be? And we go through a step-by-step process and put ideas together. We've worked with professionals to do this earlier on. Now we're a little bit better at it and we can kind of do it ourselves. But we constantly challenge that. So every 3 months, we sort of have a quick review of that. Every 6 months, it might be a bit of a deeper review, and every year, deeper again. So that's one example. I mean, look, we have 5 core values, which again, we sort of came up with as a team. You know, we had a competition and spent a bit of time on it and made it kind of fun. And every week we have a meeting where we sort of plan out, or at least talk about what are we doing this week, what are our wins from last week, and we tie in these company values. I might talk about, I had a win last week and it lines up with these core values. Does that make sense? And the rest of the team members do the same thing. So we're kind of celebrating something that happened last week and how it tied in with the values. So there's this constant reaffirmation of what we're about, why we're about it. It's helped us become like a tight family, I suppose. I mean, we are only a small company of 9-10 people, but at the same time, if you don't work on that, it's a little bit of a different outcome.
No, I mean, I think that's very important. We've talking a lot more about that as well here at Consulting Success, with our team, and just the importance of having values and making sure that everyone understands what those values are, because they speak not only to how we operate as a team, as a family internally, but also externally, right? When you're very clear on your values and, for example, the kind of values that you want to have in the clients that you work with, then you can communicate them more, right? You can kind of weave them into your content, into your marketing, into your messaging. And what's interesting about that is we've certainly found, I don't know what you've kind of seen, David, but when you start to put those values out there, you tend to actually attract people who really kind of share some of those values as well. Has that been your experience as well to a degree?
Yeah, I would say so. It is almost like a way of sort of lining up with who you do want to work with and who you don't want to work with. And also for the team, like for me, one of the most important things that I hold to myself as what I'm trying to achieve by creating a company is actually having staff, team members that come to work each day because they like what they're doing, they like what they're a part of, they feel like it's something worthwhile. That's one of my main goals. I'm not really a money guy. I'm not trying to get rich and create this huge empire. I'm actually more about helping people. So I like to help customers and I like to help staff, right? So for me, if I can have staff that are empowered and sort of like these core values, if they truly believe in them, and then I think it becomes outward facing, like you say. Yeah, we believe in this to connect us, and the staff truly do. Then they can also pick and choose almost who they want to work with. It's just not fun working with customers or organisations that aren't really aligned with you. Everything seems to be a struggle. It's just not fun. So plenty of business out there. We try and find business that is more fun to work with. Yeah.
Right. So here you are today, David, about 19 team members at Connectus. What have you found to be most helpful in ensuring that everyone remains focused, productive, making progress? Is there a specific framework or approach, or what do you do to ensure that people are actually making progress and moving things forward, that things aren't kind of falling off the tracks or that things are not getting delayed? Is there a meeting that you use? Is there a specific approach to productivity? What do you guys use internally that's working best for you?
Oh, yes, definitely. So it's 9 to 10, so not 19, not yet anyway. But let's say 10, round numbers. We definitely have a framework. We have a rhythm of meetings. So every day we have just a quick stand-up meeting and everyone participates in that, no matter where they are, so they can join via video call if they're on site. We also have one of our team members, Santiago. He's kind of managing the projects and overseeing all the projects. We have a good software which we use to do that as well, and so he sort of uses that, and also his time just to make sure everyone's working on what they should be each week, each day, and delivering the specific things that we've agreed to deliver for our customers. That's probably the day-to-day, I would say, and how we manage that.
So when you look at your business today and kind of the landscape, what do you feel most excited about right now?
It's one of those industries, to be honest, it's an industry that's constantly changing. So there's always something new to learn. And I think that's what definitely a lot of the team is excited about. They're constantly learning new things, new ways of doing things, new technology. And whilst I'm not super passionate about the tech, I'm more driven by helping customers achieve their business outcomes and having happy customers, happy staff. That's more where I'm at. When you have those two things hand in hand, though, when you're a customer and you see all this change, how could you possibly know what to do there? I mean, there's just so many choices, so many options. But if you can have someone like our company that can help you understand these options and how they can deliver strong outcomes or solve problems for you in a meaningful way, it's like a nice matchup, if that makes sense. So It's an ever-evolving space with great opportunities for businesses of all kinds to take advantage of, and we can help them do that.
All right, so now let's flip it for a moment. Challenges. What do you feel right now is the biggest kind of challenge that you're actively working on?
Well, for us personally, I mean, it's probably just working on staff, to be honest. That's been a big challenge for us lately. It's a relatively small labour market in Australia, in our industry. And that's a challenge not just for me, but for many companies in the industry, whether they be consultants or actual installation companies or even the vendors. So that's been a bit of a challenge. We're exploring some different avenues there on how to structure our business. But the other thing is the marketing, and that's what we've been working with you and Sam on quite closely over a few months, is trying to get our outreach going and just enable us to grow a little bit beyond what we can grow through, referrals and doing good work.
Yeah. I want to just take us back for a moment to the idea of team. When you started the business, were you very intentional? Did you already see the future of and know that you wanted to build this to be beyond yourself? Or did you think, start this, Jonathan and I, it'll be the two of us, maybe one more person? How did you envision the business when you first started?
Yeah, we didn't plan probably that far ahead, to be honest with you. We were both working together in this other consulting firm and sort of building a business within a business for someone else. And we just sort of looked at each other and thought, why are we doing this for? Why don't we just break away and do it for ourselves? I mean, that's what we're doing anyway. And it was a relatively quick set of conversations, and that was that. We moved away and started it. So it's back in 2013. 8 years later, we've learned a lot. Definitely, we've worked with business coaches and attended different types of courses, and now working with yourselves. We've definitely learned a lot along the way about planning and looking forward. And back then, I think it was more just, we're probably in that situation maybe where a lot of your listeners are. It's sort of, we'd almost bought ourselves a job and hadn't really thought about it too much more than that. As we worked to try to make it more of a business, we put structures in place, we learned about what that meant, and now we actually have a business, which is great. And then moving forward, we want to obviously grow it so that myself and Jonathan can step out a little bit and it becomes an actual business without relying so much on ourselves.
You're right, David. I mean, that is a big area of challenge for many consultants. As you've been going down that path, what are maybe two things that you've done that you would say have freed you up the most or given you a lot more time to spend thinking on the business, being strategic, and not just doing all the delivery and work yourself? Are there, maybe give me two things that stand out for you as, these were game changers for us?
Yeah, we just probably sat down and looked at simple things like organizational structure. So what's going to be the org structure next year? What's it going to be in 3 years? What's it going to be in 5 years? That's the basic stuff. And what kind of numbers in terms of revenue, expenses, that kind of thing. What does that look like? Are there going to be multiple offices? How do we need to hire to go from one org structure to the next one in that period of time? Once you sort of put that bit of a plan in place, it's not that hard to join the dots and you know what you're working towards. So it's not difficult. It's just a matter of taking the time to do it. You might need some help from an expert to do it in the first kind of couple of times, but once you get a feel for it, it's pretty straightforward.
Was there any hesitation or reluctance on your part as you started working towards making that shift, going from the two of you really doing everything to building the team to now at a place where you're looking even bigger picture, even more strategic of how can this business operate without as much of your direct involvement and just freeing yourself up more? Any mindset shifts, anything that you were kind of reluctant around and you've got past it now, or you've seen the light at the end of the tunnel? Anything that stands out to you there that I'm just wondering in terms of other listeners who might be facing or coming close to that same situation, anything that you could share with them?
From my perspective, I just didn't want to be doing the day-to-day all the time. There's so much sort of, you use the analogy of $10 an hour, $100 an hour, $1,000 an hour. I was just sick of doing so much $10 an hour, $100 an hour work. It just didn't make sense to me. I wasn't getting joy from that. So for me personally, I just wanted to train people to do that for me so that I could be doing more exciting work. I mean, I much prefer to be out meeting with customers, whether they're new or existing, understanding what's going on in their world, how we can help them have those business level type conversations, and then hand it back to the rest of the team to execute on different types of activities or solutions we might have come up with. And for Jonathan, similar really. He's really passionate about tech and loves the new technology and learning about it, and he's probably key to the business in that regard. If he can be freed up to learn more about that and sort of improve his knowledge and pass that on, and not both to externally to customers and also internally to the team, that really helps develop in both directions. And that's a place where he'd much rather be instead of doing that sort of $10 an hour, $100 an hour work. It gets tiring and boring after a while, so it was very easy for us to quickly decide we wanted to change direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much time people spend on those lower value tasks without always noticing it. And it's very easy to fool yourself into believing that, it doesn't take me that long. I can do it faster than teaching someone else. But all these things compound, they add up. And when you look at it over the period of a week or a month or a year, you spend a lot of time doing things that really aren't creating much value for the business. And in many cases, things that you don't really enjoy. And so it can require some courage and taking a bit of a leap of faith to either bring people on or start to delegate or outsource or say no to things that aren't conducive to real growth or just helping you to make a greater impact. But if you're long-term focused, then you want to trust that feeling of knowing that it is something that, even though it might be hard, it's something that you should do. And you've done that very well, David. The other thing I want to ask you here before we wrap up is you're always learning. That's one thing I really admire about you, that you're always looking at ways to gain new insights, new information, new perspectives that you can use to share with your team, with clients, and just for you to become a stronger person yourself. What's one book that you've read recently that you found just enjoyable or really valuable and helpful for the business? It doesn't have to be a business book. It could be just something that you've enjoyed personally. Let's open it up. Just anything that has really resonated with you recently.
There is a short little one which your brother Sam put onto me, and I really liked it. It's called the 25-Year Framework. And it's been a book that I've shared with lots of people, everyone in the team, and some friends and family as well, because it just really hit home with me that what's the rush? Okay, what is the rush? There is no rush. You can take time to just smell the roses and enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the process. I'm a results-focused guy, always have been, just like my father, grandfather. It's just Italian background. That's how it is. And that little book there's not a hard book or a long book to read because I'm not a huge reader, but I really liked the message, the overall message, which was a 25-year framework, not a 1 year, 25 years. So that's plenty of time to get where you want to be going to, and sort of it's given me that sort of time to, or feeling at least, like I can breathe, I can create space in my life to do lots of things. So that'd be my book.
Great book. That's by Dan Sullivan. And then another book on a similar topic that I think people would find interesting is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. A similar concept, very powerful when you really look at it, and exactly how you're saying. I mean, very often, many of us are very hard on ourselves, and we try and cram a lot in and judge ourselves based on success and failure of what happens in a very short period, like a month or a quarter or a year. But for most of us, if we're playing the long-term game, we have plenty of time. And it doesn't mean that you don't try and develop yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't try and accelerate or to see results sooner. But just know that if you don't hit that one thing that you're hoping to hit right away, like it's okay. You'll figure it out. Just be consistent. Keep looking at ways to improve, to optimize, to get better, and enjoy the journey. That's a big message that for all entrepreneurs, we're so often focused on outcomes and results that we forget to enjoy the journey. So that's a really great reminder, David. So before we wrap up, where can people go to learn more about you, about your company? You guys put out a lot of great content, videos, articles that I think is relevant for anyone in organizations these days, given how many of us are working in a hybrid type of situation or using technology in our own businesses or with clients. So give us maybe the one place, David, that people should go to learn more.
Well, connectus.com.au is where you'll find everything, including those resources you mentioned. Otherwise, my LinkedIn profile has pretty much all that as well.
Okay. We'll have all that linked up in the show notes. But again, it's Connectus with a K. So KONNECTUS. You said .com.au?
That's right. Yes.
All right. Just want to get that domain there correct. So highly encourage everyone to check it out. Again, lots of great resources there. David, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.